We've not done much on Lancias before in Classics World, and it's probably a shame. Maybe it's my fault, I always tend to pick the Alphas, of course. And here we are with a lovely Fulvia, courtesy of Pioneer Automobiles near Chieveley. And I've got something of a personal affinity with the Fulvia. When I was back at school, I used to rock up every day in my 74 Beetle. A friend used to park our Fulvia right next to me every morning. She rang me, we'd lost touch 20, 30 years or so. She rang me out of the blue, could I help her with her car? Oh, what is it? Well, blow me, it's that same Fulvia. So obviously I was ran like a shot, and we got it running, and you know, it's lovely to see it after all these years. But I've never actually driven one, apart from around the block, you know. So I'm going to take this example here, 76 1.3S. I'm going to take it out for a spin and see how it compares to the Alpha, specifically the 105 series GTV that would have been the contemporary. First impressions are that the Fulvia rides really nicely, which is perhaps not the focus you should have on a road test of a car like this, but I'm following a modified Japanese car, it's a 200SX, down this farm track, and he's having to go so slowly over all the potholes, even the tiny ones. The Fulvia is just happy as anything. This is actually one of the last Fulvias that were made, or certainly the last sold in the UK. It's an original UK market car. 76 car, 1.3S, which means 90 horsepower from your 1300 engine. You didn't get that from the Europeans, did you? The 1300 Capri didn't offer you 90 horsepower. And it really does feel lively, in a typical Italian way. And of course, I've got the typical Italian driving position here, but I'm used to that. I've had lots of Alphas, and you know, I'm immediately at home in this car because I do like my Italian cars of the 70s. I can see why they won rallies in the Fulvia. It just feels so sort of pointy. Blimey, I think 200SX man thinks I'm up for a race. I'm actually not. It's fascinating technically, the Fulvia. It was an evolution really of the replacement for the Flavia, which went before, which had a flat 4 engine. The Fulvia actually uses a narrow angle V engine. And we've heard that somewhere before, haven't we? That's right, VW. So the Fulvia's engine, 12-degree V angle on the 4-cylinder, narrow enough to work with a single cylinder head, which was very much what Volkswagen Group later did, much later, with the VR6 engine, and then of course the W engines. So a little bit of history there really, in that Lancia got to the VR4, I suppose, long before Volkswagen told everyone they'd invented it. I was driving an A35 down here earlier, and I was just sort of pottering along, looking at the scenery and listening to the bird song. This car, I mean, I'm not going to because it's not my car, but I feel like I just want to thrash it down here, like I'm on a special stage. The Fulvias, of course, were noted for their rally success, and it really gave Lancia the rally heritage that led right up to the Integrale. It feels really modern to drive, considering this car came out in the early 60s, and you know, it does feel similar to an Alpha in that respect, because it thrives on revs, and it wants to be driven. You've got to remember that dogleg gearbox. It's horrible to get it wrong. The second is in the wrong place. Everything's backwards basically. The idea is that you don't use first while you're on the move, unless of course you come up to a really tight mountain hairpin. I think the idea is, certainly from the Italians who designed this thing, the idea is that you're going far too fast all the time to ever need first gear. So fair enough. Of course, another big difference with the A35 I drove down here earlier is the brakes. To be fair, the brakes in this car do feel like a modern car. They really are good. With the little Austin, I was a bit tentative going on the main road, but fairly certain that the Fulvia is more than happy on a British A road, especially with a 40 limit. Sounds great, doesn't it? I keep expecting to hear the Alpha twin cam growl, but it's sort of similar but different. It's got a good turn of speed. This, it is willing and it is powerful, and you can feel the 90 horsepower all still there. It is actually very tractable as well. It's coming up to the 30 limit here, and it's quite happy at 20-30 miles an hour in third gear. Of course, your mind tells you you're in fourth gear, but forget that. The interior ambience is very 70s Italian, actually. It's very similar to the GTV of the period, actually, you know, with the pretend wood and the big main dials and that sort of thing. There's another of those cars where you can imagine yourself giving it death on a mountain hairpin trying to win a rally. And, you know, you're just in a little Berkshire village, trying not to cause too much annoyance. It doesn't take long to get used to the dogleg box and the strange driving position. It's not strange to me, but you know, If you've come from a modern SUV, you'll certainly find it strange. Italian cars today are a bit too conventional, really, aren't they? They're all Stellantis, aren't they? Multi-platform. You don't get any of the quirkiness that you used to get. It's interesting to see how the ride and handling compared to the 105 Alphas, because this Fulvia's got a slightly unusual layout. It's got the engine hung off the gearbox in front of it, in fact, in front of the front axle, and you've got a transverse single leaf spring at the front end, which is unusual, and a leaf sprung beam rear axle, which is less unusual. But yeah, very different from the Alphas, and of course it's front wheel drive as well, so that makes a big difference. But actually, it feels quite similar on the road, but I would say just a little bit more stable than the Alphas. The 105 Alphas tend to have a little bit of a shimmy from the rear on rough roads, but this doesn't feel like that. Of course, Alfa was always the sporting brand, really, compared to Lancia, that measured more on luxury, but it's funny, really, despite them being very different technically, this does feel quite similar to a GTB on the road in terms of its appeal, you know, and they were on sale at the same time, and they're both very expensive cars as well, weren't they? Camera just beeped and told me it's about to shut off. It's reminding me I've been driving this Lancia for quite a long time, gone a lot further than I meant to, and that's because I really quite enjoy it. Would I have it over an Alfa? I can't go that far. I can't say that, can I? I think I would. I wouldn't not have it, put it that way. I think it is as much fun as an Alfa, and certainly as appealing, and that's coming from someone who is very much an Alfa fan. So there you have it. But then maybe you can put me in any 70s Italian car and I'll like it. That is possible. Having just said you get used to it really easily, there I am, wrong slotting. And that is a phrase.